Okay, we can start now, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
It's
but you need
it's
sebagai
8:58.
moderator.
It's 8:58. Are we supposed to start now?
I think the faster the better.
We still have 2 minutes. If you still want to wait for the participants, huh? Okay.
Sudah mulai kah?
Are we starting?
Okay. It's already. I think it's 1 minute left to 9.
Putus-putus.
I
Yes.
think.
Yes. 1 minute.
Ini sudah mulai belum?
Not yet.
Akan dimulai. We're gonna start now. Okay, so.
Hold it. Let me open the CVs. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna introduce myself first in the chat. Okay, it's 9. No. It's 8:59 still.
Why am I nervous? I've been doing that like so many times, but
Okay, it's 9.
All right. Are we ready to start? Is it starting already?
Of course, I'm really ready.
Okay then. All right.
Yeah, I think it's starting already. Everyone's already here.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Welcome to this academic circle webinar 2020 under the title of Best Practice from Theories to Practices, Learning English for the Future. My name is Yuniar Diyanti and I'll be chairing today's session. So it's good to have you all here. You can use the chat room to introduce yourself and to greet one another. And later on, when you have questions, you can post that and see it under your screen. All right. So today we have 3 outstanding speakers, I must say, and 2 of them are my seniors at the graduate school. And our first speaker today is Mbak Ista Maharsi. Let me tell you a little bit about Mbak Ista. She's currently a lecturer at the English Language Education Department of Islamic University of Indonesia, Yogyakarta, or Universitas Islam Indonesia. She's also a TOEFL and IELTS trainer at Language Center of Faculty of Economics and Business, Gajah Mada University, Indonesia. She's also currently a doctoral student at the postgraduate program of language sciences in Universitas Negeri Jakarta, Yogyakarta State University. And today she'll be talking about becoming lifelong learning. So that's a very, very interesting topic. So Mbak Ista, you will have probably 25 minutes to talk. And then we're going to have a question and answer session. So make sure everyone to post your question and answer, and then I can read that. So Mbak Ista can answer your question. And after Mbak Ista, we're going to have Mbak Djihad Bouaoune and Mas Raditya Paramasuta. But yes. I will tell you about them later to keep you questioning, all right, to keep you here. All right, Mbak Ista, the floor is yours.
Okay, let me share my screen first. All right, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Good morning, everyone. So first of all, I would like to thanks to the academic circle for inviting me here in this webinar. And then secondly, I would like to thanks to all of the attendees in this webinar. I know that you are from some of you are high school students, teachers, lecturers, and everyone's attending this webinar. And today, allow me to share a little bit about becoming lifelong learners, transformative learning, and teaching in the post-digital era or digital era. Well, we are going to learn more about how we will learn in the post-digital era. And this is the world that we are living now in 2020. So partly we are in this, or mostly we are involved in this internet minutes. If you see that the figure of email sent is 190 millions, and then the next one is 59 millions of messages sent. And with this, we agree that year 2020 is the webinar with the webinar sessions. Yeah, webinar is the buzzword of the year 2020. And we are also here together in this webinar for some reasons. And here we go. So we are to some extent connected because of the pandemic situations. And many people stay at home, but we still try to stay connected. And we also want to learn because we want to get better future. And then whatever the reasons that we are here, but we all want to get something new to be ready for the new reality, which is the digitalized world. Therefore, we need to transform into learners, lifelong learners, and of course, probably lifelong teachers. But teachers are also learners, right? And one of the theories to set the foundation for better learning is transformative learning. There are actually many learning theories, but I picked one because this theory seems to be connected with us, and now we are still doing this, I guess. We are transforming ourselves to face the new reality. And based on Mizero, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, transformative learning is the process of effecting change in frame of reference. So we are going to talk about association, concepts, values, feelings, conditions, responses, and they are all define our life. And then what are actually transformative learning? So Mizero described or gave some indicators of transformative learning. The first one is an enhanced level of awareness of the context of one's beliefs and feelings. So awareness becomes very important. If we are aware that we are now living in the digitalized world, so we need to transform ourselves. We need to adjust ourselves to the new life. And then the next one, it's a critique of their assumptions and particularly premises. So we also need to critique the assumptions that we have or the assumption of other people. And we also need to assess the alternative perspective. This perspective could be our own perspective. It could also be other people's perspective. And after that, what we need to do is a decision to negate an old perspective in favor of a new one, or to make a synthesis of old and new. And these decisions, whether we are going to leave the old perspective and then move toward the new one, that very much depend on how we adjust ourselves to that new belief, to that new concepts. And then the next step will be taking actions. So it is not enough just to be aware and then assess and then make a decision, but we also need to take actions based upon the new perspective. And of course, with the desire to fit in the new perspective, we are participating in the broader context of life. All right, what about transformative teaching? Well, transformative teaching is basically similar to transformative learning because teachers are principally also learners. We can teach because we also learn. Without learning, we cannot teach well, right? And in transformative teaching, the key word is the mutual relationship between teachers and learners. So we are learning together, but we can also be partners, partners in research, partners in projects, partners in professional development, for example. So we can set up project together, you can write together, and you can also do something or do innovations for your future together with your students and teachers. And this relationship is a kind of a dynamic relationship. And this also empower both the learners and also the teachers. Okay, but then transformative learning is not enough because we need to engage and we need to include 21st century skills. These skills are probably familiar to many of you, but then in the implementation, sometimes some people are still reluctant to do that. In 21st century skills, there are basically 4 components: communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. In communication, of course, we can share thoughts, ideas, opinions, questions, etc. While doing that, it will be much better if we also collaborate with others. We collaborate with teachers, with peers, with other experts, with practitioners, for example. And while doing so, we need also to think critically. This critical thinking might not be familiar or it might not be easy for everybody. We need practices to be able to think critically. Last but not least, but it could be the most difficult, is creativity or to some extent innovation. With creativity, we can create, modify, adapt our environment. What kind of changes that is now going, and using communication, collaboration, and critical thinking, we try to create something new. And as teachers, we can also do that with our students. All right, so the next questions will be, how do we learn language for our future? And that becomes the topic for today. Gearing on what we have talked about, that we are now living in transformed new reality, in a new reality where online learnings have been everywhere and people are involved in that situation. So we need to think, or we need to ask ourselves, well, how do we learn for our future? If learners probably they want to learn about language, teachers also want to develop their profession. And here we go. If we look at this, well, we start with hobbies and interests. Probably for some of you, this seems unimportant. But if you look further and think a little bit deeper, this is where your motivation can be sustained. Why hobbies and interests? Because hobbies and interests are the things that make you happy. You like it and you are familiar with it. You have been doing it for years, for example. And you can start learning whatever you want to learn in the disciplines, starting from your hobbies and interests. Okay, and this always works. And then while you are starting to learn something with your hobbies and with your interests, let me share a little bit about learning theory. And this is simplified learning theory from Krashen. It's about input and output. I'm not going to talk very theoretical stuff, yeah, but just a simple one. So when we are learning, we need what is called as inputs. So before we are able to, before we have outputs, we have input first. When learners are learning in the middle here, in the process of learning, the input should be comprehensible. And it should fit what the learners want to do. And that's why the output could be varied. Why? Because in the learning process, each learner may learn differently, and it is okay to learn differently. That's why if you start with your hobbies and your interests, you can sustain your motivation, you can enhance your inputs, and with that situations, it is expected that you can have good output. Another simplified illustration is this. So when someone is listening to a music, for example, to music or songs, right? And then, or a conversation or utterances, then he or she can produce utterances, can speak. And when somebody reads a lot, and there is no guarantee that whatever you learn or the inputs that you have will result in good outputs. Why? Because in the learning process, there are so many things happening there. Demotivation, for example, distraction, for example, maybe you start stopping being curious, for example. So many things could happen. Well, what's next is setting up your goal. So, well, you can. Do you want to be able to speak and write languages fluently, for example? Do you want to be able to attend World Summit or international conferences, able to join international competitions, able to join students exchange, able to speak many languages, to have scholarship, to become a world-class YouTuber or travel bloggers, for example, or you want to expand your professional network, or probably work in multinational companies. So you need to set up your goal, okay, before you proceed. And then what's next? Well, the world is now in our hand. With mobile phones that we have, you can actually access many things. But so many people are not aware of this, or they haven't optimized this, the use of applications in their mobile phones. These are some of the communities address, that I found in social media. So if you are learners, you want to learn languages, you can join or follow not some, so many accounts. So you can find in your Instagram, in your Twitter, and based on your goal. So if you want to learn English, you can go to Learn English, English 121, etc. If you are going to achieve a scholarship, you want to get scholarship, then you can follow this. But I believe that not all of us would like to do this, although this is actually in our hand. Okay, and then you can also install some applications in your mobile phones. And I also believe that not so many students even, or my students, apply applications that they want to learn from it. So this is all that you can do actually, and this is very simple. It just depends on how you motivate yourself, and you set your target and how you are going to reach your target. And then I think we are going to my last slides, or several last slides. And this is important. After you start from your hobbies, your interests, and then you optimize the words in your hand, you can learn by following some accounts. This is what you need to practice your language when you want to learn language. What is called as communities of practice. This is a group of people who share concern and passion for something they do and learn how to do it as they interact regularly. So in the campus, for example, you have speaking club, movie discussion club, book club, and so many things. At school, you probably have that kind as well. And for teachers, we have MGMP, for example, for high school teachers in Indonesia. And we also have a teacher association. And by joining that communities of practice and we interact regularly with them, we have communities of practice where we can practice our skills together, and then we share ideas and motivate one another and doing projects, innovation, creativity, and so many things, right? So, right. So I think I have come to my last presentations, and thank you. So probably we have more time for question and answer. But Yuniar, how many times?
Actually, you still have 10 minutes, Mbak Ista, if you still need something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Still have something to say? No? All right, everyone, you can post your questions in the question and answers room if you have questions. So basically, when you want to study, when you want to be a good language speakers for any purposes, the first thing to do is you need to set up your goal, right, Mbak Ista?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. That way you know the target that you want to achieve, looking at your goals, and then you can find ways to reach the target. That's so first set up your goals, and then set up your target, and then find ways. Make use of all the available media. You can use all the social media. You can join any community practices out there. You can have like a book group. You can have like teachers group. You can have like probably a speaking club in the school and things like that. You can set up your clubs actually. All right. Do we have questions already?
Well, based on my observation to my students, there are not so many students who are willing to learn using their gadget. Like they they install a program and then they want to learn regularly, frequently, because they want to set up their, they want to achieve their goals. Just a view based on, well, some of my students are doing research on what kind of applications that are used by students to learn. But most of them learn language incidentally, like they play games. Many students play games, right? But then they believe that by playing games, they improve their vocabulary. They know so many utterances. They communicate using English sometimes because some of the games required people to speak, right? To communicate with other players. But that will do. That's okay, but you need to have target. You cannot just play games all the time, right?
Exactly. All right, I think we have two questions, Mbak Ista. So the first question, I think they are both teachers. The first question is from Mbak Ningrum Sekarsari, and her question is, when the goal of the lesson is speaking, is it a must that the input text should be listening?
Okay, thank you, Mbak Ningrum, for the questions. When the goal of the lesson is speaking, is it a must that the input text should be listening? Well, actually, no. Well, when you want to have inputs, actually you can have lots of listening, lots of reading, because those two, those listening and readings can help you build vocabularies. It makes you familiar with the topics that you are reading or you are listening. But we need to consider that when we are speaking, we use languages, we need to pronounce it. We need to know the context, right? That's why listening could be the most appropriate way of being able to speak. But that also depends on whether you are involved in communities of practice. For example, you have lots of listenings, but then you have less time to speak or to practice speaking. So maybe your speaking might not be as good as your listening, because that happens many times. Receptive skills are much easier to be mastered than the productive skills. So what is important is that have as many inputs as possible. It could be listening, it could be reading as well. Because by reading a lot, it can also help you to be able to speak better, right? I think we also have one question from Pak Danang, is it that?
Yes, from Pak Danang. And his question
The first
is...
one, can I answer directly?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Share with us what are the applications that us lecturers should have in our grade. Well, actually, it depends on our need, Pak Danang. So, what do you want to achieve? For example, you want to teach your students using application for writing, for example. Then you can use wikis, for example. You can use paragraph writing. You can use any applications that are accessible both for your students and also you as the teacher or us as the teachers. That's important. And it will also be good to have free or unpaid, free or unpaid applications. And we can download, for example, from Android or maybe from iPad, So it depends on you. So we can have composition, for example, writing. You can also have speaking, vocabulary. So we can also, we can have kinds of Duolingo that's learning language in two languages or more. So it basically depends on your goal, what you want to teach to your students. Then we can find in Google Play, right? Okay, hopefully I can that answers your questions, Pak Danang.
Yeah, we can have
Yuniar,
two more. I think.
With the next question.
This one is really interesting. From I hope this is a mas or a mbak. I'm not sure. Kenny Williams Panjaitan. So, do you think language learners need to master 16 tenses to be the fluent one in speaking English?
Okay, so how teachers are trying to reach English language learners during pandemic?
Mbak Ista. This one, Mbak Ista.
Is that?
Do you think language learners need to master 16 tenses to be the fluent one in speaking English? By Kenny Williams Panjaitan.
So I think I have troubles, Mbak Yuniar, with.
I think we have different list of questions. It's okay. So which one are you aiming, Mbak?
So am I answering Miss Rina Abdul?
Miss Rina, okay. How teachers are trying to...
How teachers are trying to reach English language learners during the pandemic? Well, you can have applications through WhatsApp, for example. That's the easiest way to reach your students or learners. And then you can also use social media platform. That's also easy and it's manageable. And I think so many people use those, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. You can also use some learning management systems like Google Classroom, for example. I think they are available for free, or Moodle-based applications. But the key is that try to pick up or choose platform which is free, I know that it is limited, the facilities are limited, but I think if we want to reach learners, I think it's better we pick up the free platform. Okay.
All right. The next question is from Kenny Williams, Mbak, about whether language learners need to master 16 tenses.
Okay.
To be
So the
fluent.
next question, yeah. Okay.
Whether from Kenny, Mbak, can you say it? From Kenny Williams?
Okay. It's difficult for me to learn English in this condition because as we know, everything we do is confined. Okay, so this relates with my my topic, yeah, that I have just talked about. So you can use applications in your mobile phones. Well, you can follow communities in Instagram, in Facebook. You can always learn from them. And there are so much information about webinars, for example, and they are free, where you can always upgrade your knowledge. And then you can also upgrade your skills, I think. So it depends on how you use your mobile phone. So I think everyone has mobile phones, and you can have application for learning English for free, I guess. Okay, I hope that answers your questions. Okay.
The next question.
Can I go directly to the next questions, but Yuniar?
Yes,
Do I still have time? Yes, okay.
You still have
time. For Mas or Pak Kenny William Panjaitan, thank you for the questions. So, do we need to master 16 tenses to be fluent in speaking English? Well, okay, this is a tricky question. Well, formally, yes, there are 16 tenses, but we don't use 16 tenses in real life, right? We often use just some of them, right? Not the 16, but just some of them. Well, past tense, present, future, present perfect, and a little bit more, right? But not all those 16 tenses. Even if we pay attention to native speakers, they do not use the 16 tenses, right? If you watch movies, for example, and then you watch a TED, for example, they don't use 16 tenses. So don't worry about it, Mas Kenny or Pak Kenny. Yeah. So don't worry if you cannot master or remember all these 16 tenses. That's okay. As long as you can communicate with other people understand you. You try to use correct grammar, and that's fine. Right? So we are now in the world of word Englishes. So it is okay to speak English using your own dialect, for example. That's totally fine, right? So you don't need to worry about it. Okay.
All right. So I think
yes,
this one is going to be the last question from Mbak Diba Aziz. Can you do it? Can you try to answer that, Mbak Ista? From Diba Aziz.
Okay, so the next question from Mbak Diba, is it?
Yes, yes, it's the last question.
Maybe this is the most difficult question. My students are highly motivated to learn, but their vocabulary is very limited. All right, so the problem is about vocabulary. Okay. Vocabulary, if someone has lots of vocabularies, probably he or she can communicate better or can read lots of books. But by reading lots of books, students or readers can also improve their vocabularies. Vocabularies and reading or other skills, yeah, they are very closely related. And to get more vocabulary, of course, once again, we need inputs again. And you can have inputs from both listening and also reading at the same time. So again, when talking about what is it, the way how we communicate using a varied or vast range of vocabularies, we need lots of inputs. And reading could be one of good activities for students, especially to improve their vocabulary. I think that's it. And in terms of motivation, well, okay, so many students might think like, well, I don't like reading. Well, actually, nobody hates reading. It's just that they read the wrong books. Okay, once again, I may repeat, yeah. Nobody hates reading. So everybody should love reading. Only that they read the wrong books. Okay, that's why going back to my previous slides, yeah, going back to my previous slides, that you can start with hobbies or interests. Well, they don't like reading because we give them books to read. We force them to read books. But when we ask them, okay, you can choose the books, any books that you want to read. Maybe they want to read based on their hobbies and their interests, and they will like it because, because they love their hobbies, they love their interests. That's why they probably have wrong books. That's why we need to change our stance on this. Let the students pick up the books they want to read, or let the students open their gadget and then explore by themselves and give them time to read whatever they want to read. If they like comics, for example, they like anime, for example, so let them read it. Starting from there.
Okay.
Okay.
Great tips. Thank you so much.
Do I still have time, but?
No, thank you. I'm sorry you don't have more time. Too bad. But we have questions, and I think we would be glad to answer.
I still can continue a bit, yeah?
No, sorry you can't, Mbak Ista. It's already 9:35. So let's give the chance to the other two speakers, Mbak Ista. Thank you so much, Mbak Ista. All right. So I think I'm going to move on to Mbak Djihad Bouaoune. Mbak Djihad, you're Algerian, right?
Yes, I'm Algerian.
Yes, Mbak Ista?
Sorry, I have trouble.
Okay. It's okay. So I'm going to move on with Mbak Djihad, Mbak Ista. All right, now let me tell you a little bit about Mbak Djihad. She's a fluent speaker in French, English, and Bahasa Indonesia, but her native language is actually Arabic. And she's currently a student, also in the same department as Mbak Ista Maharsi, and she's my senior, by the way. And she's an active translator at the Yogyakarta State University Language Training Center, Yogyakarta, Indonesia. She's also an English for foreign language teacher. She's an instructor and trainer of TOEFL, IELTS, and TOEIC, also at the Yogyakarta State University. And she has an interest in ESP. And she also teaches Arabic. Wow, I'd like to learn Arabic with you sometimes. And today, she's going to share with you all her journey in learning several languages. Mbak Djihad, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for the chance. Good morning, everybody. It is really nice to meet you all here in this webinar, and I hope it will be enjoyable and beneficial in the same time for all of you. And as have been mentioned before, the topic is entitled The Journey. I haven't written only language learning, but it is actually, I have called it as a journey because the first thing that you have to consider as teachers or learners is that language learning is a journey. It is kind of trip, it has the starting point, and you will go through that journey or that trip until you achieve your goal. And actually the goal can be, let's say, updated. The goal can be renewed depending on the on your needs and the purposes. And the mistakes, they are very important. That's why it is a journey full of mistakes, full of challenges, and also full of enjoyment. And this is what I'm going to talk about. And I will also share a bit about my experience. And today I'm not going to give you my experience as a model that you can be and that we generalize this everybody learn, because people differ in terms of attitude, aptitude, abilities, and the like. So before we get started, actually, Ibu Yuniar already has introduced me, and I'm Algerian. My mother tongue is Amazigh. This is my tribe, and also I speak the French, because our country has been colonized by French for a long period. And then the second, the foreign languages that I have learned are English and Indonesian. And I'm currently pursuing my Ph.D. at Yogyakarta State University. All right, so let's get started by the introduction. I will give this introduction briefly. Language learning is an art. Why it is an art? Because actually art, when we are playing a musical instrument, each of us will play the instrument differently. This depends on how and what we want to, what kind of music we want to produce. Or when we paint a painting, it is the same thing also. So we have three maybe learners. Each learner will paint the painting differently, and we will have three paintings. So this is the same with language learning. It depends on each individual and how they would learn that language, and also depending on their purposes. Let's now get started with the motivation, because this is the clue or the first thing that we have to consider before you start learning the language. What is your motivation to learn the language? There are many things that can be the booster of your motivation. First of all, feeding your brain, boosting your career if it is related to your career, being a global citizen, because we are talking also today about the future. So being a global citizen, when the many languages you learn, the more you will be involved in the global world. Unlock knowledge also, because actually it is enjoyment of gaining knowledge. It's just cooler also. When you know many languages, you can interact with more people. Field school requirements, as has mentioned before, kind of scholarships and the like. Travel to exotic places to build confidence, improve your native language. To learn more languages, you can improve your own native language. Actually, languages are different and differ from one to another, but when you learn the languages, when you learn the language, then the second, that will be easier. It will be easier for you to learn also another language and the other, because based on my experience, when I learned Arabic and French, I learned them when I was a kid, but when I learned English as a foreign language and then Indonesian also as a foreign language, I felt that English and Indonesian were easier to learn than Arabic and French, because I already set let's say a methodology for myself, and I already knew what I need and how I can learn the languages. So the more you learn more languages, the more you can improve even your native language, and also make new friends, especially for teenagers and school students. So these are some of the things that can motivate you. The first thing before you start to learn any language, you have to be motivated to learn it. If you want to learn any language, you can learn it as long as you want that. And your view about the language matters so much, because language, if we want to define language, if we go to theories and read about the language, there are many and many definitions of the language itself. So you have first to define what language means to you and why you need the language. Do you need it for communication? Do you need it maybe for your work? Do you need it, you need the writing of the language? Do you need the speaking more of the language, depending on your purpose? Like from my experience, I love languages because they really envelop the culture. So in my case, and as I have said, my case is just an example of many languages through associating them with the culture. So I consider learning the language as knowing about the culture of people, exploring that culture. So I really enjoy it. I don't consider it as I'm learning a subject of the school or kind of doctrine. No, I consider it as I'm knowing more about the culture, people's attitude, how they celebrate anything, their celebrations, food, and many other things. So this made learning the language very interesting to me and very enjoyable. Learning a language helps you to understand history also. Like when I learned Indonesian language, I relate to history of Indonesia, because that may gain knowledge also, because actually there is the tool, but through the language we can do many things. And through the language, that's why language teachers actually are very powerful, because through the language, what you introduce through the language to your students matters so much, because you can build their only to teach them to master the language. And then I mastered the language. My language is so fluent, and and I'm a citizen. I'm a citizen of my country. I'm a citizen of the world. What I would bring to the world through learning that language, that is the most important thing. So usually teachers focus only on the master of the language, but we have also to, we are building, especially for kids, we are building someone's character, we are building someone's beliefs. We are, so through the language also we can provide materials that also, so when selecting the materials for teachers, you have also to be very careful, and you have to select the authentic material, and also the material that would really add to the students, not in terms of the language itself only, but also in terms of their characters and their personalities. And it is very important personal contact with the language you are learning. You have to make that language as a part of your life. You have to make it as a part of you. Even when you are thinking, usually you think in Bahasa Indonesia, let's say, if you are an Indonesian, or me, I think in Arabic, you have to try to think in the target language. It's all right. You will start step by step until you achieve that goal. So it really needs your to set for yourself as fit me. What works when you learn would work. All right. So the first thing, decide on your purpose, why you want to learn the language, set your target, as the first presenter has also said, set your target. The target is very important. Let the purpose always be your motivation booster. Always remember why you are learning this language. Whenever you feel a bit lazy, or let's say disappointed, or let's say also dispirited, remember your motivation to boost your, remember your purpose to boost your motivation, and learn vocabulary. So the first thing, you have to learn vocabulary in order to communicate, because when you want to learn the language, the first thing is you can communicate. People can understand what you want. Like me, when I came to Indonesia, I wanted people to understand me, and I want also to understand people when I want to eat at a restaurant, when I want to ask someone for something. So I learned simple vocabularies as the first step. And after that, I tried to use them. Even the sentences I produce, the statements are not correct grammatically, but people, especially natives, would understand what I want to say. And that really motivates me to keep going and learning more. So the first thing, I learned vocabulary, which is relevant. And after that, I went in depth with the grammar. So don't start with the grammar, especially for speaking. You have first to learn the vocabularies, especially for beginners. And when you gain, let's say, you enrich your vocabulary knowledge at a certain extent, and after that try to focus on the grammar and stay consistent. Never lose hope and stay consistent. Language is just like other sciences, just like other knowledge. It can be gained, but it needs time, motivation, and also determination. So the one common element to me is that I set my goals. As I have said, I like to look back and see whether or not. So self-evaluation is very important. So teachers, if there are any teachers who are joining us today, please try to build your students' ability to self-evaluate themselves, evaluate their own learning. So they don't need you to assess. You can monitor them, you can see, you can observe and all, but they have also to acknowledge, oh, now I can do this. Oh, now I need this. My level is like this. So it's you who will provide the scaffolding for them to know and acknowledge their levels, but actually it's themselves who can, because later they will not their students, they will not be your students anymore. So they need that in their journey of learning the language, because actually it's endless. So they have to evaluate themselves, and this is also can be considered as critical thinking. You criticize your own learning, you criticize your own strategies and everything you are using to learn. And I did also that, especially when I learned English. When I learned Arabic and French, I was a kid. We can say that that was not learning, but it's more to acquisition. But when I learned English, I was in junior high school. So I tried to evaluate myself. I always ask myself about, and compare, even I compare in the class, I compare my ability to my peers or to the other students, and I say, oh, her level is really better than mine, and I try to know what are my lacks, what are my what I have to improve. And this is very important, and this should happen on a regular basis, not only once or twice. It's through the journey. And if we talk about the 4 skills of the language, actually the first presenter has already discussed them, so I will mention them only briefly. We have listening, we have reading and writing, but what we sometimes neglect as teachers is thinking. As I have mentioned, language also requires us to think, because if you want to speak fluently in English or any language, you have to think rapidly in English. You have also to read materials in English, try to read them critically, to set your position towards what you have read, to think using that language. It's not only I want to master the language and finish. No, of course, no. So you have to think using that language, and you have to, it's kind of using your first language. It's the same thing with the target language. Think using it, criticize using it, interact using it, present using it. You have to make it as a part of your life. What to think, when to think, and also how to think is very important. And in terms of speaking, in terms to speak effectively, you have to speak in a natural spirit. Even your vocabulary knowledge is very limited, it's all right. Try to use what you already have in your vocabulary deposit. Try to use it in order to communicate. This will motivate you, but in the same time, you have also to get input in order to enrich your vocabulary knowledge. Speak with confidence. Yeah, through my experience, the very, very important point is confidence. Most of the students who try to learn a new language are less confident, and this is very important. It's the role of the teacher to make them confident, feel that they have to reach the perfect level in order to be confident. Be confident whatever your level and however your level is. It's all right. Be confident with what you have achieved, because actually some other people there only can master one language while you are trying to do something new. You are learning, and when you are learning, this be itself appreciated. Appreciate what you are doing and keep going. So the confidence is very important. And especially for beginners, and you can after that use more and more. Don't start by using the very sophisticated vocabularies. This will make you a bit confused how to use them accurately, because you have accuracy and also fluency. So try first to be fluent, and after that we move to the accuracy, the grammar, and also the use of accurate words. And record what you are speaking. Like me, when I learn the languages, usually I record when I'm speaking. I try to record and then listen again. And I watch a video or anything, I compare my pronunciation, how I spell the word, how I say the words to the ones in the video, or how native speakers speak. Although I never consider native speakers as the real model for me. Like let's say here in Indonesia, I never considered that I have to speak like native Indonesian people, because I'm not Indonesian, and it's impossible for me to speak similarly like them. So the most important thing that I master the language, I can use it, and people can understand what I'm saying, and I say it correctly. We have reading also. You have to decide what to read, and this depends also on what you like to read, and how to read also depends on your learning style, your learning preferences. You have to set your learning strategies. Do you like to maybe read short texts, long texts? How do you like to read? Do you like to take notes? If you don't like to read books, try to read journal articles, try to read stories, anything. So this is very flexible, because the goal is learning. It's not what you are using to learn. And remember, if you want to learn language, you will. This is the point. If you don't really want to learn the language, you would never learn it, because language is as everything. You want to learn swimming, you will. You want to learn the language, you will. It is a thing that we learn like others. Ask yourself, do you want to learn this language? If the answer is yes, you have to be inquisitive and think about it logically. It is learning. Learning is not something impossible or so hard. You have to be inquisitive, and you have to set your goal and walk to your goal slowly or quickly. It doesn't matter. The most important thing that you will be able to talk. Let's say you set small goals or little goals first. Like the first goal, I want to talk about family in French. All right. So this is the first goal. Let's give it a week. Try to talk about family, and after that, set another goal. But the main goal is to master that language. This is it. So be inquisitive in learning, and you have to be also smart on how you draw your journey. And practice, but don't just practice randomly. Know when and what and how to practice. And this is also needs actually time. You will start randomly, and after that you will know yourself what you need and everything, and you will go through that. And as teachers, our role is actually to monitor them, to know what and when and how to practice, and to know themselves well. All right, and now we are already in the conclusion. Language learning is an art. I have said that in the introduction, and I will repeat it again in the conclusion. Language learning is an art, so we have to acknowledge that as teachers and learners also. It is flexible, it differs from someone to another. Yes, there are theories, but even when we look at the theories of language learning, there are so many. The approaches also, there are so many. We cannot say that this is the perfect approach to learn the language. This is the perfect method to learn the language. No, it depends on the purpose. It depends the purpose of learning. It depends on the learners themselves. It depends on the teacher or herself. If you teaching and you apply it in a very effective way in your class, that would help your learners. It's all right. Keep going with it. And if another approach would work better for you, you can try it. So as teachers, we have to try. Always keep trying as lifelong learners. We have to keep trying to improve our classes, to improve and help our learners. If we only apply one approach or one way of teaching and keep going with that, the time is actually the time is going, and also the time and even our learners are changing, so we have also to change our mindsets, our way of teaching, and benefit from the technology to teach our students also, and help them how to benefit. Actually, I consider technology as a tool to facilitate, but it is to facilitate and also to use less time, but actually the learning itself, it's more complicated than that. So technology, we can benefit from it, but it is not like when I'm using the technology, okay, I'm learning the language. No, the technology is a part that you can benefit from to facilitate the journey, but actually the journey itself has to be from you. Yeah, and I think that this is all. Hopefully it is beneficial for you all, guys, and if you have any questions, please state your questions. I will do my best to answer your questions, and thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Jihad. All right, so the point is, if you want to be very good in language, if you want to be a very good language learner, if you want to end up becoming a good language speakers, then the first thing to do is you need to consider the learning language as a journey, not as a duty. And then you need to be confident. And then you also need to be reasonable with the set goal. That's right. But Jihad. All right then, Jihad. So we have several questions already. Here, I think the first question is from us, the Guhiman. It's asking about motivation booster. Is there some kind of motivation booster if you get bored, for example, of learning language, and then is there any way to improve your motivation in learning language?
All right, thank you so much for the question, for the participant who has asked the question. Yes, motivation is the most important point, and actually motivation, as human beings, we have our ups and downs, so the motivation sometimes gets at its best and sometimes drops, and how to keep consistent, keep our motivation always well, is that actually we have, as I have said, to evaluate our own learning and knowledge. Like when I achieve a small goal, I have set a small goal, let's say to be able to speak about family, or to be able to ask about directions, and I realized that I already achieved that goal and I'm really good in asking about directions in English, I have to think about that and even reward reward myself for what I have done. This will motivate me, because will lead you to that you can achieve your main goal. This is when you set the journey, or when you think about the journey itself, it has to be logic, not random, as I have said. So there are goals. When you achieve one goal, this will lead you to achieve the next and the next. This will make you motivated and happy to achieve the next one. But when you just go in a random way and you cannot master any aspect of the language, this will make your motivation drop, because you will feel that, oh my God, I cannot even talk about news in English, and I can't ask about directions. I can't do anything with the language. So you have to set first small goals, reward yourself, appreciate that, and this would motivate you more. And always go back to what, like, think about, oh, how my language was and how is it now. Compare, evaluate. This is what would motivate. Yes, hopefully it answers the question.
All right, thank you so much, Mbak Djihad.
You're welcome.
Now, the second question is from Mas Danang Wiratmoko, who's asking about, he wants to know how to make us students, so he's a student, to practice speaking English while they don't really like to use English language. That's his question.
What is the question?
He wants to know, he wants to know how to make students, I think he said how to make us students, he's a student himself, to practice speaking English while they don't like to use English.
All right, they don't like to use English because actually maybe they don't feel that learning English is enjoyable for them. As also the first speaker has mentioned, because that doesn't meet their interest, that doesn't meet what they really like. So as teachers, the first thing that we have to do is to acknowledge what they really like, what they are in their interests, especially when we have what they learn. And from that, the material that we provide and all activities that they would not enjoy the journey. They would consider it as one of the boring subjects that are forced to attend because it's a part of the syllabus, it's a part of the curriculum, and this would never help. So the first thing, they have to acknowledge what they really like. And when speaking, like if you want to watch, if you like to watch movies in English. Start with watching the movies with subtitles, and after that, a bit, automatically you will find yourself that you can understand without the subtitles. It's like that. So they have to find the ones that meet their interests.
All right. Subtitled, everyone, not dub, okay? Choose the one which is subtitled. All right. The next question is from Rahmat Saiful. Okay. He's asking whether it is fine to learn 2 languages at the same time.
Sure. Yeah, sure. It is so fine. But actually this also, I say it again, depends on the individual himself or herself. Actually, and our abilities also, we have different abilities. We have, so it depends on the individual. Like me, in my case, I learned Arabic and French, but at that time I was a kid, but I learned them in the same time. And even English, I'm still learning now English. Learning the language is continually journey. So them in this whether you can do it or not. Yeah, and when you learn 2 languages at the same time, it's a bit, you will find that one language is maybe much easier than the other, but you can benefit from the way or the methodology that you are using. Another. Yeah, I mean, I learned Arabic and French at the same time, and it worked for me. It worked for me, and I used the strategies, because as individuals, the strategies that would work for me to learn Arabic would also for me to learn English and the other languages. So I used similar strategies depending on what I like. Yes.
Thank you. I think Mas Radit will later talk more about learning two languages at the same time.
Sure,
All right, now
yes.
this is the last question from Jihad. How can we motivate, from Nur Khalipah, how can we motivate students to learn English in pandemic situation? However, the students are not utilized of technology and the parents are not motivated the children to learn language and they just want the children pass senior high school. The parents, some of the parents are not well educated. Okay. Yes, that's the question.
And it embodies, yeah, and it embodies many issues.
Yeah.
Yeah. Literate or less literate parents. We are talking also about the pandemic itself. The pandemic is itself a bit challenging for the students, but as teachers, we have kind of a risk plan for such a situation. So the first thing, we are benefiting from the technology in this time of pandemic. So you can motivate your students through, actually you are still in contact with your students through social media and all. So you can send them kind of materials, games, and like kind of activities that would also motivate them. You can also, when you are teaching them, also try to make also the teaching more enjoyable for them and to support them, because actually it is a very hard time for them as learners, especially with the pressure of the parents themselves also. Yeah, because the parents pressure and they are putting the pressure also on their kids. So it is and it would, we have to keep going in order to achieve our goals. Yeah. And in terms of the parents, so we have also to, when we meet or when we encounter such situations, we have to work on the learners themselves. If it is possible to be in contact with the parents, that would be great, but if it is not possible, we would work on the learners themselves. We have to make them acknowledge that it's not the goal only to pass the exam, but also to learn the language and to gain the knowledge. Yeah.
Right. We can have one more question actually, Majid.
Okay, sure.
From Anissa Ruri. Yes. How to control our pace when speaking in English, since you mentioned that we need not to speak too fast. Sometimes when I speak English, a lot of things run in my mind, and a lot of students complain that I speak too fast. Very interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And this is the problem also when teaching speaking for IELTS, because the most important point in speaking is to speak logically, in a logic order, in order to make the listener focus and also understand what you are saying. So when you have many things coming to your mind, things that are very important, or when you want to emphasize a point, try to slow down, while you can speed when you can speak faster when you are talking about something that is not that important. And also if you want also to not focusing on that point itself when you are giving examples or details. So you have to control, and that needs practice also actually. And you have also to consider who is the receiver or the listener, like the speed through. Yeah, you have a knowledge, like you be conscious of what you are saying. When you are really conscious of what you are saying, you can control, like, oh, this point is very important, I have to, and try to practice it, like record yourself, try to record yourself explaining your material, and try to control, focus on the speed itself, and try to control it, listen to the recording, and try again the difference. And time, of course, you will get used to it.
All right, just right on time. Thank you so much, Mbak Jihad.
Very welcome. Thank you so much too for all the questions and for your also assistance and monitoring. Thank you so much.
So we actually have several questions unanswered live by the speakers, but we have the panelists to help you answering the question in written form. So if you haven't got your questions answered, you can go and check the answer in the question and answer room. And we have tried our best to answer your questions there. Okay. All right. Now it's time for Mas Radit. Mas Radit, are you ready? It seems like you are very ready.
Well, yeah, a bit nervous actually, but yeah, really ready.
All right. Mas Radit is a Chinese translator and private tutor. Private. I like the word private. Okay. Now he's currently also a student. You're a student at the University of Indonesia. You're taking Chinese studies. Is that right, Mas Radit? And
Yes, I take Chinese studies at
he's
Indonesian.
also a very good speaker of several languages. He's going to talk about today tricks on learning and teaching new languages, not new language, yeah, new languages.
Yeah,
So
new
it's going
languages.
to be very interesting. All right, Mas Radit, the floor is yours.
Okay, I'm gonna share my presentation. Can you guys all see it?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so for the first, okay. And here's the title for my presentation today. First, tips and tricks on learning and teaching new languages. I specifically said new languages because it might be, for some of you, you might be teaching for about 2 until 3 languages, I guess, not only English or Chinese, but also teaching English and French at the same time. There are many teachers who did that as well. So here's my personal profile. Wait. My personal, okay, wait. My personal profile, here's my name, my age. Well, I may be on the same age with many of you here. And here are the languages spoken by me: Indonesian, English, Chinese, Malay, a bit Spanish, because I'm currently learning Spanish as well. And I'm currently learning French and German, because I do believe that this pandemic has gave us much time to discover ourselves and to learn new languages. So I decided to learn new skills and to gain my language skills, because I know French, German, and Spanish would be really beneficial for my future and for my career. And on this presentation, I would also talk about how learning English could help our future as well, because this is the topic of our webinar for today, right? And my occupation is final year student of Universitas Indonesia, majoring in Chinese studies. So I'm currently writing my thesis, and hopefully I will graduate this August. And I'm also a part-time Chinese teacher and a freelance Chinese translator. So my translations can be found in www.scbd.com, which is a CBD developer in Jakarta, Indonesia. And I supply their news and documents translations. So I translate from Indonesian to English and Chinese. So when did I start to learn language? I started to learn English at the age of 6, because I do believe that English is a gateway for me to the world. And English is indeed a gateway for me to make some friends, lots of new friends from all parts of the world. And also English has taught me a lot of expressions and a lot of skills that I gained from my English skills. And then I started to learn Chinese at the age of well, but still inconsistent because I have no idea about Chinese that time, and I still thought that Chinese is indeed very difficult. And I just started to brush up my Chinese during my college days in the age of 18. And I practiced Chinese until today because, you know, I still use Chinese effectively and actively with my friends and my lecturers. And I also thought that English grammar was very difficult when I was about 8 or 9. So I made several mistakes, grammatical mistakes that was a bit fatal, but in the end, I managed to overcome those barriers. And then I used to have some difficulties in pronouncing English and Chinese vocabularies because my mother tongue is Indonesian, and Indonesian have some, you know, differences with English and Chinese. So I do believe that it's kind of like a bit difficult for me to pronounce English and Chinese words at first, but once with once I trained, once I repeat the whole word with, you know, pronunciation practice, I managed to overcome that problem as well. Moving on to the next slide. Why did I learn English and Chinese? Because first, I learned English because English is an international language that could break any global barriers, and I proved that through my international activities that I've participated in the past 2 years. I was selected as the representative of my university in international volunteering for better inclusivity activity that was held by Ministry of Research and Higher Education of Indonesia. And on that activity, I've met so many people. I've met people from African countries such as Tanzania, Uganda, Kenya, Nigeria, and also from India and Vietnam. And I trained my English there because, you know, I love to meet new people. So I think it's a good chance for me to practice my language skills. And also English is a tool for me to understand about Western culture and values, because right now what we've seen that many of us thought that Western technology and Western values are still, you know, one thing that is currently really developing and really dominating the Indonesian scene. So I do believe that by learning English, we could understand their point of view. I could also understand about their thoughts as well. And the second one, why I learned Chinese, because I'm interested to their cultures as well. I myself is an ethnic Chinese. My dad is Chinese and my mom is native Indonesian. So I'm kind of like very interested to learn about the culture of my roots, the culture of my ancestors. And I also see China as a global powerhouse that is currently maximizing their potentials. As we see right now, China is really developing, their industry is really emerging, and their economy is booming for the past 5 years. And what we've seen is that China is currently holding a very major role in global situation. And through my Chinese language skills, I was able to maximize my potentials too. I was able to, you know, to get a job. I was able to brace myself into new field of opportunities, and I also could make new friends with my Chinese skills as well. And why did I learn English? Why do I think that learning English would be very beneficial for the future? Because I do believe that right now, English is considered as an international language and a global language. So I do believe if you want to immerse yourself into global community, I think learning English would be very beneficial because everyone speaks English right now. Everyone is trying so hard to be able to be fluent in English, and I think that in order for you to speak English, it's actually not an easy ride, but I guarantee it would be an interesting and very beneficial one. So I do believe that learning English for the future will be really beneficial for your own good, for your own future, and you know, for the future of your community as well. Because by speaking English, it means that you're accepting the world to see everything that you offer, and you let yourself promoting yourself to the world, and you are opening yourself up to the world as well. So next slide would be why Spanish. I'm currently learning Spanish because I'm always interested in Latin American culture and their issues. And I do believe their issues is kind of like very colorful, especially with in Mexico with its issues with the US. And for me, it's really interesting because Mexico has always a unique, dynamic relationship with the US. So I would like to understand how about this issue? I would like to understand this issue from Mexican point of view. So I decided to learn Spanish, and I learned Spanish during my third year in university, and it wasn't easy, but I decided to challenge myself as well. And thankfully, my Spanish skills make me manage to speak a little bit Spanish during my Chinese summer camp in 2019 in Beijing, China, with people from Costa Rica, Argentina, and Uruguay that ended up as my close friends. And these three countries are Latin American countries, and they are really patient enough to give me, you know, their formal and informal Spanish skills. So I think that my conclusion would be these three learning new languages would be all beneficial for you. How I study languages. So how I study languages first is through TV series. Why? Because TV series are a great example to learn new languages. In order for a script of a TV show to be approved by a TV station and its producer, it should be grammatically correct. Otherwise, it will never be on air. I do believe that American and British series are great examples for you to learn about their situations. And, you know, in American and British series, mostly they have their own expressions, either informal or maybe formal expressions. And I think it would be beneficial for you to understand their context, understand their historical point of view, and understand every single point of view that they have. And then the second one is through song lyrics. Why? Because it's just like TV series. In order for a song to be approved by a producer, to be picked up by a record label, the lyrics are also must be grammatically correct. Otherwise, it will never be released to public. Songs are also good enough for you to learn about slangs and non-formal expressions, because as we've seen in songs, there are some singers tend to put informal expressions in their songs. What are my tips and tricks? Number one, perseverance is a must and indeed a key for you to master a new language. Why? Because I do believe that in order for us to tackle a new language, we must have that strong will for us to move on and to be able to master the new language. So I do believe perseverance have major role in this, have a major role in learning a new language. Number two, keep working on your pronunciation and your listening skills. These are the most important steps, because once you called yourself fluent, you must be whether questioned on your pronunciation and listening skills. For example, if you said that you're really fluent in English and you fly to London or Los Angeles, the local people will ask you in English, so it could, you know, test your skills a little bit, whether you're really fluent or just fluent. Number three, learn from your mistakes. I do believe that mistakes is the best guru, is the best teacher for us to move on and to revamp ourselves. So I do believe learning from our mistakes could be a really great help for us, and for us to, you know, to finally master a language and a new skill. Number four would be practice makes perfect. This is important, just like learn from your mistakes, and we can learn from our mistakes through practice. And I do believe that more practice could result in us being more ready and being more skilled as well. And the fifth one would be try to be confident and practice your skills with a foreigner that is using your target language. For example, you are going to Bali. For example, you know, many Indonesians try to test their English skills with going to Bali. You're going to Bali and meet some Australians and Americans right there. Don't be shy. Just don't be shy. You have to try to step out of your comfort zone, try to speak, try to overcome those barriers, speak with your heart, no matter what they say. It would be a great lesson for you, because mistakes are great lessons as well. And with practicing your skills with a foreigner that is using your target language, it would be really beneficial for you as well, because you can learn from them. And you might learn about non-formal expressions that they have that is really uncommon for us Indonesians and the other people from other countries. What languages that are recommended for you to learn during this pandemic? As we know that this pandemic is currently occurring for the past, I think 4 until 5 months, isn't it? I think that there are many languages that I recommend you guys to learn during this pandemic. First one is Chinese, because China right now has 1.3 billion population. That's making Chinese as a perfect language for you to learn because of its diverse issues, because of its very big population. China is currently a very great market and a very great, a very great condition for you to learn. And China is currently developing, and its issues are interesting. So I do think that it would be great for you to learn Chinese. Spanish influence are really apparent in the American continent. So in order for you to learn about Latin American culture and understand their context, it would be great for you to learn Spanish. Because as we know, Indonesians are also kind of fond with Spanish with their telenovelas and also football in Latin America or maybe in Spain as well. So I think Spanish would be really great as well, because Spanish is also a diplomatic language in the United Nations. So I think it would be really beneficial. Next one, it would be the most romantic one, French. France is a European powerhouse, and its influence in Africa and the Caribbean and the Caribbean is strong. French is also a global diplomatic language. So in order for you to understand about diplomatic context and legal context, French must be learned, because I do believe that with mastering French, it could make you more sophisticated, make you make you sound more intelligent. And I do believe that French is indeed a very great language to learn. And if you're interested in global affairs, French would be a great language to start. And the next one would be German. Germany is a leader in European technology. If you're interested in understanding technological and mechanical matters, learning German would be worth the effort. I know it's really hard, but learning German would be really beneficial for those of you who are interested in engineering, technological matters, and mechanical matters. Next one would be Japanese. Japanese is indeed important as well, because Japanese is well known for its cultures, its technology, its issues. So I do believe that speaking Japanese would be really beneficial for you, since Japanese is a developed country and it's also a major Asian powerhouse. So I do think learning Japanese is worth the effort. And Korean, yeah, Korean. I know many of you here are Korean fans, probably love to watch Korean dramas. So I do believe Korean wave is indeed inevitable in all parts of the world. So Korean would be a great language to learn. Next one would be Russian. Since Russian history and development are always interesting to follow, so I do recommend Russian, because Russia and its neighboring countries, the ex-Soviet Union countries, are so dynamic. So I do believe that Russian is also worth the effort to learn. And the last one would be Arabic. Middle East has great technological developments for the past few years, and it is widely spoken in Middle East and Africa. So I do think that learning Arabic is also worth the effort for you to understand, or maybe for you to gain a client for commerce in Middle East and Africa, because right now Middle East is really a key player as well when it comes to engineering and oil. So I think Arabic is worth the effort. Are there any regrets on learning new languages? For me, the absolute answer would be no. I have no regrets on learning new languages, because I do believe that learning new languages can broaden our horizons and widen our connections with other people from all parts of the world. And it could also widen our understanding about the world and its issues. So I do believe that learning new languages could open our mind, could open our heart, and open ourselves up to the world. And I think it's really beneficial for us. And once you feel that, you'll feel that learning new languages would be really beneficial for you. And the last one would be, for languages, we can understand about the culture of a particular country and make friends with the locals. That was happening to me when I was in China last year. I finally managed to understand about the culture of the particular country of China, and I finally made friends with the locals as well. They're really and through friendships that we made with the locals, we could understand their point of view, we could understand their culture, and we could understand every single thing that they know that we used to have no idea about it. So since I'm also a teacher, teaching Chinese for elementary school students in Indonesia, so there are about 5 reasons on why did I decide to teach new languages. First one would be, there were desires for me to give back to the community and to help people to get fluent in a foreign language. Because I do believe that there are so many Indonesian children who wanted to be fluent in a language other than English. So I think it would be really noble for me to be able to teach them another foreign languages. And for Indonesians who are practicing English right now, I think it would be really beneficial for me to help them as well, to help them more fluent. And indirectly, it could also make it also means that I help Indonesia to achieve better future as well with English mastery. And the second one would be, I'm always interested in the field of education because I'm currently studying Chinese studies as my major, and there was a subject in my major called teaching methods of Chinese. So I do believe that by applying those methods, I could give contributions to the field of education. Number three, to seek more experiences because teaching languages are my first job. So I think it would be a great gateway for me to start my professional world. And number four, to challenge myself by sharing my knowledge for those in need, same as number one. And the last one, to contribute something to the field of Chinese language teaching. So these five are the reasons on why did I decide to teach foreign languages. Okay, the last one, not the last one, the next one would be experiences. So my experiences on teaching are, I taught about 12 until 15 students privately since 2018. Two of them are junior high students and rest of them are primary school students. And the second one, I taught three different levels at a primary school from 2018 until 2020. I resigned last month because I expected to graduate, so I don't have to come to the city where I teach. And the third one, I went to Beijing, China for a Chinese summer camp and managed to bring home an award from the competition that was held during the camp. So there was a competition on Chinese speech, and there are about 70 until 72 participants participating on the summer camp, and we have to prepare a speech, and I finally managed to bring home an award, which is the second place from 72 persons. So I think it's quite great for me to finally manage to bring home an award from the competition to Indonesia, because it means that I contribute something to the country as well. So what are the tips and tricks to teach foreign languages? So number one would be vocabularies mastery is the key. So better deepen students' understanding about vocabularies first before starting with the text or dialogue. So in order for a student to understand about the context of a dialogue or a text, we must master vocabularies first, because vocabulary is the key for us to understand the context that they are talking about in the text. So I do believe that vocabularies are must. Number two, grammar rules are always important, because when it comes to writing and speaking, we must take notes on our grammar. I do believe that grammars are, even though it's complicated, but I think it's really beneficial for us to learn. Number three, encourage students to use the target language actively. It could be used in many ways. You can have a debate, you can have an argument in their target language, you can have speech competition, you can have monologue, dialogue. But those efforts could be used for you to encourage students to use the target language actively. And number four, appreciate their efforts, including their mistakes. Mistakes are acceptable as a process of learning. I do believe in this fourth point, because I think that we as students will feel really good if we got appreciation from our teachers or from our lecturers. So I do think that in order for a class to be effective, you must appreciate the students' efforts as well, in order for the students to give you a great feedback as well. Number five, insert some cultural context during teaching activities. So if you're teaching French, Spanish, Russian, English, or any foreign languages, you should insert the culture of the particular country in order for the students to understand about the country as a whole. Because by learning languages, we can understand about the culture, and by understanding the culture, we can understand the whole country and the whole situation as well. So I think inserting some cultural context is indeed a very important step in teaching. And the last one would be teach students about formal and non-formal expressions that are parallel with the culture of the target language. In English, we have so many non-formal expressions, and I do think that teaching students about non-formal expressions will increase their mastery of the language itself. It will also give a kind of like an impression that they understand about the country, they understand about the community. So thank you. This is the end of my presentation. So here's for more inquiries. You can contact me through these platforms. So yeah, I think that's it for my presentation. Yeah, I think we can move on to the question and answer.
All right, thank you, Mas Radit. So Mas Radit is also providing several tips of learning a foreign language. that the first thing you need to have is perseverance.
Yes.
And then you need to keep working on your pronunciation, because it's one of the key of being understood in a second language, is that you need to have a clear pronunciation.
Okay.
And then you need to learn from your mistakes. Don't worry. You may make mistake, but don't worry about it. And then keep practice, and practice.
Yes.
And then be confident, just like the other two speakers, what the other two speakers already presented, that you need to be confident. All right?
Okay. Yes.
Okay, Mas Radit, there are several questions.
Yes,
And,
I already see.
okay, the first question is from Mas Danang.
Okay.
And he's asking whether, okay, hold it, I lost it. Indonesian students are afraid to make mistakes. Yeah. Indonesian students are afraid to make mistakes. Sometimes they like to make fun of our mistakes. Yeah, sometimes you got bullied when you make mistakes.
I can agree. I
so
have
any
to agree on
suggestion?
Okay.
Any suggestion for the one being bullied or for the bully? I'm not sure.
Okay. Okay, for me, I experienced that as well. I think the key on mastering a new language would be, you just have to don't listen to them. Just don't listen, because I do believe that it's their loss if they bully us. I think through mistakes, we could learn so much things. We could learn on how to develop ourselves even better. We could learn on how to, to prepare ourselves even more. So I think that, Mas Danang, if you got problems with bully or something, just don't listen to them. Let them be. Let them be. It's their loss if they keep criticizing on us, if they keep bullying on us. All you need to do is just try to let them to give you suggestions, because suggestions are, a powerful key for us to develop as well. So I think that's it.
All right, I hope that satisfies Mas Danang. Okay, now the next question is from Mbak Risna Abdul.
Yes.
Okay, Mbak Risna. I hope it's a Mbak, yeah? Mbak Risna Abdul. The question is, the coronavirus disease pandemic has upended family life around the world. School closures, working remotely, physical distancing. It's a lot to navigate for parents. Can you offer some tips to help keep children's education on track while they are staying home?
Okay, I think that these working from home and studying from home thing is also a great solution for us to spend more time with our children as well. So I do believe that in order for you to keep children's education on track, you just have to guide them and to study together with them, and to make sure you review on their lessons that they receive on that day. And I think that you also have to to keep communicating with the class advisors, like the wali class. You have to maintain a great communication with them, because that's what happened with my younger brother. My younger brother is currently on his 6th grade, and all the parents have a great relationship with their class advisors. So I do think that maintaining a very healthy relationship with the class advisors would be also a great alternative for you to keep children's education on track, because every day the class advisors has their own Zoom sessions with the students. So because of the daily Zoom sessions, we could also keep tracking our children's progress. So I think that would help you to keep children's education on track by maintaining a very great relationship with other parents and also the class advisors and the other subject teachers.
All right, thank you so much. Now, this is from Anania Serin. I have a simple question, but maybe the answer is not going to be simple. So, how to overcome the difficulties when we do presentation in public? Suddenly, what we have prepared is lost from our memories. Yeah, sometimes that happens. Perhaps you have some tips about that.
Well, back in China, I used to have that problem as well. So what did I thought when suddenly my thoughts are lost? I suddenly just remembered the whole points, the key points, and I developed the whole key points on the spot. So I just literally said whatever I said based on the key points on my brain. So all you need to do is that remember all the key points. Just just don't remember the whole thing, because from the key points we could develop our own thinking, you know, a new way of thinking, and it could be another great ideas as well.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now this question from Gaining Room.
Yes.
Can I say that the most important factor in learning English is motivation? Can you say that?
Yeah. Yes.
So what's your opinion about the teaching and learning process in the classroom, especially for the junior or senior high school students, which are various in their capacities, which is based on curriculum issues? Do you have any idea about what the curriculum or syllabus should be in order to be able to meet the students with their motivation? Well, this is the question more suited to Mbak Ista, but I hope Mas Radit can help enlightening a little bit
Okay.
Related to motivation.
Okay. My opinion would be based on the curriculum issue. I think that we have to adjust the way of our teaching. We have to adjust our teaching method as well. So even though I teach for the curriculum 2013 and curriculum 2006 back in schools, I approach them in a very different way. I approach them as a friend. So they would listen to me. They would tell their, you know, sufferings. They would tell their, you know, their hardships on learning particular language. So I could adjust the way of teaching. I could teach slowly, and, you know, I could teach, you know, with full of heart. So because I do think that when it comes to teaching a big number of people, you should really you should be really close to them in order for you to learn one by one about them, because every people has their own capabilities, has their own capacities. So I think that in order for everyone to understand, you must approach one by one, because I once taught a class of 40 students, and I finally managed to, you know, to know about their minus, about their plus, and about their capacities, about their capabilities, and I finally managed to make them all pass on the Mandarin subject.
All right. Now this one
And do
from
you have
Risna
any
Abdul.
idea? Yeah.
Okay, this one is from Risna Abdul, and okay, are there differences in strategies for teaching Chinese as a foreign language compared to English? Yeah, I'd like to know that too. As we know that both are foreign language, which one is easier to learn for Indonesia? Okay, quite tricky, isn't it?
Of course, there are differences. Of course, because Chinese is a character-based language, and there are, you know, some differences when it comes to writing. Because in writing, we not only writing in Latin characters, but we also writing in Hanzi, which is the hand characters. So there are a lot of differences, and the question which one is easier to learn for Indonesian students, I do believe English is easier, because English is at least we have some derived words from English to Indonesian, and English is much easier because they also use Latin alphabet, and the pronunciation are more easier than Chinese. Chinese it's hard. You must master English first before you start with Chinese.
All right, that's a good tip. All right, now next is this question from Erlina Chris Vidyastuti. Okay. So what would you do for the students who have low interest in studying English?
Based on my experience teaching Chinese, for those who are unmotivated to learn Chinese, and this can be applied to learn English as well, you can make the whole activity as a fun one. You can make it as, you know, a quiz, or maybe a song contest, or maybe a choir practice, or maybe games that could be really interactive. So once you make the class into a very interactive one, I think students will be really attracted to English and to other language.
All right. Now from Mbak Afifah Ardi.
Oh yeah, but we.
She's asking about how to build confidence, because all three speakers talk about to be confident in learning the language. So how to be confident actually? How to build self-confidence?
Confidence. How to build confidence? I think it must start from us, the teachers. We must appreciate them. We must keep, you know, praising them, but also with critics, because through our praise, through our appreciation, it could build their self-esteem. It could build their confidence. And from the parents, they should also appreciate and support the particular student's efforts. So I do believe that confidence is built through self-esteem, through, appreciation, praise, and also critics, and also, constructive suggestions.
Okay, there are many ways, right?
Yeah,
And probably a supporting environment, right?
yeah.
Okay, now
Catalina.
this one is from Catalina. That's right.
Hi,
Do you
Kata.
think you ever end learning a language, or is it a lifetime journey?
I think I won't end my learning. I think I won't end this journey because I do think that my passion is learning new languages. So I think that I would never end my time learning languages because I do think that learning languages would be a very interesting journey, and I do consider language as my lifelong passion. So I think that I won't stop.
Okay. Right. Now go back to the question from Mbak Risna,
Right?
Radit. Since you consider that Chinese is a bit more difficult than English, but is it also possible to learn both English and Chinese at the same time?
I think if we started from early learning from the early age, I think it could be possible because there are several kindergartens and several elementary schools, especially the private ones, who taught Chinese and English at the same time. So I think it's quite possible because back in China and Singapore, they also learn English and Chinese at the same time. But we
What about
must
us?
Indonesia, I think we're having a very different mindset with Singapore and Malaysia because Singapore and Malaysia has more Chinese population in their percentage rather than us. And I do think that for us to learn English is also a bit hard for us because we have some difficulties in teaching methods and also have difficulties in educational issue. So I think that what makes us different from Singapore and Malaysia because of the Chinese percentage of the population, and our relationship with China is getting better only in this era. So I think that I think I appreciate the government's decision to input Chinese into the curriculum since senior high school. But I hope that government will input Chinese as curriculum for elementary school because I do believe that Chinese is really beneficial for elementary school students for them to understand and for them to comprehend Chinese.
So is there a chance for success for us? I mean, for me, like the rest of the audience are also adult learners. Is there any chance for us to be successful in learning Chinese at our age right now?
I think yes, as long as you have the perseverance, as long as you have the strong will, as long as you have a great motivation to learn, I think you will succeed because once you're able to speak Chinese, there are so many gateways opening for you. It could be for teaching, for translating, because right now Chinese developing, and in our country the influence is getting stronger than the American ones and the Western ones. So I think that learning Chinese would give great benefits for all of you as long as you have the motivation, as long as you have the strong will and the perseverance.
All right, this one is from Diba Aziz, and this is the last question. But it's actually addressed to all panelists, but I'd like to give my Radit the first chance to answer this. Now, it's still related to bullying or psychological experience. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Okay. Now, some students have bad experience such as bullying, being laughed at, learning pronunciation, spelling, and so on. It affects them and makes them demotivated. What approach will you take to remotivate them? I'd like to hear that.
I think that because learning languages is all started from the teacher. I think us as a teacher have a great role for us to motivate that particular student by motivating them through appreciation and and also constructive critics. We could also help them to not stop their learning process because it's a pity for them to stop in the middle of the road, and we should always encourage them to not listen on whatever barriers they may face, to let those bullies be, because I do believe that those bullies will just felt that it's their loss if you bullying on someone that that is bad, because you won't learn as well. So I think you could also learn from the bullies as well to improve yourself, to develop yourself, and to, you know, to keep going on.
Mm-hmm. Right, now let's listen from Mbak Ista and Mbak Jihad whether these two outstanding speakers have ever experienced bullying during their learning journey, and how, if they have students, how to remotivate these students to go back learning language. Mbak Ista, Mbak Jihad?
Okay, thank you, Yuniar. Well, in my opinion, sharing stories of successful people, but they have what is it? They were bullied when they were children or when they were kids. I think that would be good. Showing to our students examples of people that these people can be successful because they have been struggling all the time. And I think most of the successful people start from being bullied, yeah? Like, who is it? The basketball players. I think many people, once they were bullied, even famous singers, famous actress, they were bullied. So I think sharing that stories and then trying to dig for the lessons can motivate them back. I think that's it.
All right. Mbak Jihad? Oh, your audio needs to be set on first, Mbak Jihad. It's now off. Yeah, okay.
We have turned it on. I believe that as teachers also, it is our role also to solve the problem in the class. At least in our classes, we start from our classes before motivating them. We can provide materials, videos, activities that are related to bullying as actually a phenomenon and how to solve that, and also to give examples on how bullying could impact the personality and also the psychological state of the children, so they would acknowledge that and stop that. As teachers, we can provide input in relation to that. And in order to motivate them, yeah, as has been mentioned, it is very important to give examples that bullying is a challenge, but it is not a challenge that could stop us. We have to keep going by giving them examples of people who could manage to succeed besides all the bullying. But we have also to do our best to solve the problem, at least in our classes, to build the character education of our students in order to not be bulliers, in order to not do that. At least like we are actually building our society starting from our classes.
Now, still related to motivation. So, do you think lowering the materials for the students, I mean, something below their level, will motivate them, or it's just going to demotivate them?
Is the question for me?
For everyone. This is for everyone.
Okay. Yeah. So I answer first. So
yes.
So as teachers, actually, it needs time for us to acknowledge first the abilities of our students. Even we are teaching, let's say, class 2 or the level that we like assume that it is, they have similar, let's say, levels or abilities, but actually it's not, because they have different abilities, capacities, and all. So we have to acknowledge that. And when we provide the material should fit their levels in general, but also we have to simplify the material for those who cannot understand the material that we are providing for if so easy for them, would be demotivating actually, because especially if it is too easy for everyone, of course, because that would make because they are learning something they already know, they already to be that. So be careful with that. We have to provide the material that is in its levels. We can also to manage to provide to, let's say, make that material fits on everybody like that. So we can simplify, we can provide more explanations, more assistance to those who cannot understand the material well. And also we can also motivate them to help each other, those who are able to the material quickly, they can help others. They work in groups and all the activities that we can do, especially in communicative language approach. Yeah, but the material, we have to be careful that it is not too easy for everybody. This would make it so boring, or too hard for everybody, because it also would make it challenging for them. They will feel demotivated, and they will feel that their level is, they are kind of, they would, even if primary school, they would say like, we are kind of stupid, we cannot understand what is provided by the teacher, but actually it's higher than their level.
So the sense of success, right? It's really also really important. Mbak Ista, any final remark?
I think I agree with Mbak Jihad, yeah, to say that you can have, your students can have the same activities, but you can modify a bit for the students with high proficiency. Ask them to do a difficult part of the activities, ask them more difficult questions so that they can get the challenge. Because if everything is made easier or is made simplified, so high proficient students might find it boring. I guess just that.
All right then. Okay, Mas Radit, do you have any final remark?
So my final remarks would be, I would like to say thank you for all panelists that are really amazing, and also Mbak Yuniar as our moderator. Thank you for moderating our discussions, and all attendees. I do believe that learning English and other languages would be really beneficial in the future. So my suggestion would be, don't give up. Just don't let the others bully you. Let them be, and keep practicing and keep learning from your mistakes, because I do believe that mistakes and practice makes your skills perfect.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, I think that's the end of our sessions today. Now, for all attendees, if you go to the chat room, you have the link to the attendance list if you need that, and also the link to the certificate. Is that the certificate to all? Oh, I'm not sure. Mas Radit, could you help? Is this the link to the certificate to all the participants, or only for the panelists? So the link to so the committee is providing a certificate for all the attendees, and they will be sent to you very soon. And also there are questions and requests related to the PowerPoint slides that the three speakers have today, and they will also be linked to you. So don't worry about that. You can learn more about their experiences in learning foreign languages through their slides. All right then. Okay, that's the end of the session today. I'm so glad that I see you all today, and see you next time with our next webinar. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.